Hi there everyone, Paula here. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I became an astrologer. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe to my channel. I post a video every week about astrology, Ayurveda, and different ways to uplevel your health and your life. So I decided to make this video because I've had a few people ask me about my journey to becoming an astrologer. And of course, I didn't say to myself when I was a child, I am going to grow up to be an astrologer. In fact, I grew up in a pretty normal household in the suburbs. My parents were, entrepreneurs, business owners, making their way in the world. And I learned a lot of my sort of intuitive knowledge and experience and my desire to learn more about mysticism through my grandmother and through a caretaker that I had as a child who grew up during the Great Depression. And so I really appreciated having these older, wise women in my life, but they too were not super hippie or woo-woo or into astrology by any means. Actually, the caretaker was very much a Christian, but she did teach me a lot about plants and appreciating things and really taking care of things because she grew up during the Depression. And my grandmother, my mother's mother, was actually a Cherokee Indian, so Native American, and grew up kind of relating to the earth. And all of my grandparents actually grew up on farms and really worked with the land. So I was one generation apart from that. But I always felt like there was something that was really important about relating to the unseen. And, I didn't grow up camping or having really any relationship with nature aside from going out in my backyard and collecting lightning bugs and, being in the grass and, playing outside and getting dirty. I definitely did a lot of that as a child, and would lay on my back and stare up at the sky and wonder, So those things really set me up for having a questioning mind. And also when I studied anthropology in school, I came into contact with other cultures' ways of viewing reality and like religion and spirituality. And that really intrigued me. So most of my 20s, I was pretty much a skeptic, especially with astrology. I felt like there were a lot of people out there saying things and I could feel energetically like maybe it wasn't true or I didn't trust them. So I had a very skeptical pose. And it really took a major transition in my life. I was going through a divorce and having, all these things excavated within me, trying to understand myself. And in that moment, I had a Vedic astrology reading. And this was a huge turning point in my life. This was about 10 years ago. When I had that meeting with that astrologer, he said things about my life and the transition I was in. Just by looking at my chart, he could see these things. And he said, oh, were you in a car accident around the age of 11? And, yes, I was. And, he mentioned some different things like that. And I was just dumbfounded. That's the best word for it. And something clicked inside of me. And I was like, I want to learn this. And for anyone who's a Vedic astrologer out there or an astrologer or diviner of some kind, I'm sure you had a similar moment where you just realized that this was your path. And so I immediately purchased a book he suggested, which is Light on Life by Dr. Robert Saboda and Hart Defoe, who's the lineage keeper of the lineage that I am doing Vedic astrology in, and who was the teacher of my main teacher, Stephen Heiberger. So I read that book, but it was so dense. It's like an encyclopedia that I just said, I need a teacher. And so something really miraculous happened once I realized this was something I wanted to pursue, I wanted to study, I wanted to focus my energy on. The universe started to conspire to help me on that path. So very shortly after that, I took my first trip to India. I had never been before, right? So I didn't know what to do. I had called out to my Facebook friends, what should I do? 2 people suggested that I go to this small Ayurvedic clinic in Karnataka. And so I went, And the first night I was there were two interesting people there who handed me a book called Prakriti, because I didn't know that much about Ayurveda at the time. And I read it cover to cover. And that evening at dinner, Dr. Robert Svoboda was sitting next to me. And this is really, now I realize how remarkable this is, because there were only 6 people at this retreat center, and I was one of them. And then Dr. Svoboda shows up, he's sitting next to me. I've just read his book, Prakriti. If you aren't familiar with that book, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best books you can read about Ayurveda. And so I'm sitting there with him, and then I realize, oh my gosh, I have another book of yours, Light on Life. And I really want to study astrology. At the time, I was a media person. I did a lot of media. I started a website called civileats.com that's still going on, and they're doing amazing work on the food system. So that was something that I had been really entrenched in and involved in up until that point. And, he needed some media help. So I became his media manager, and I wrote a strategy document, and we've gone through everything in that document since then of building his media out. So such a blessing to me, because I've gotten to dive really deep into his work, and it's taught me so much. And he and I both love astrology so much, Vedic astrology. So we go through charts together, and this has been hugely helpful for me. In addition, I was just praying that I could get a teacher. And at that time, Stephen Heiberger lived about 45 minutes away from me in the Bay Area. And so I would go up and study with him and do these major downloads every week. And it was a very intense trial by fire. I'm a very fiery person. So when I get my mind set to something, I'm like, boom. So I took the plunge, like really deeply into this as a practice. And reading charts regularly has been the key to really understanding how these patterns show up. So I've been extremely blessed with teachers that have helped expedite my learning. And I'm still very much learning. I'm still studying with my teacher. I'm still learning every single day through working with you all and having these beautiful examples of lives and charts to look at and to compare with what I know, and to see how things emerge. So I'm so grateful, and it's such a joy to be able to do this work and to be able to help people to understand their karmic map and see how that awareness, just putting that awareness onto the opportunities and the challenges, helps to transform them at a fundamental level. That's the first step. So it's such a pleasure to be a part of that process, and it is so gratifying to be able to do the thing that I feel like I was made to do, and to do the work that is so meaningful to me and feels like it helps other people. So that's just a little bit of my story. And if that resonates with you, if you're also a person who does divination, I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. And I will also add the 2 books that I mentioned down below, because a lot of people ask me for books that help them with both Ayurveda and astrology, and those are my 2 main recommendations. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.